For these practice problems, we want to solve the literal equations. So the I can statement for this is I can rewrite and use literal equations to solve problems. So the rewriting part is kind of like the first three problems that I've given you. We're just rearranging the variables. The other part of that I can statement is that you can use them to solve problems would be these two problems. So to rewrite a literal equation, I actually like to write it out. So I can actually write the multiplication sign. Now notice right here it says 4b. That means solve for b or isolate it. Sometimes you'll see a problem like this without words. Sorry, that should be a b. You're so used to writing x that you write it all the time. So you'll see a semicolon b, and that just implies, hey, you need to get b by itself. You need to solve for it. So I like to highlight the variable that I need to isolate. Now, for all of these, we're going to undo order of operations. So in this problem, there is no adding or subtracting. So I can just move on from that. There's none there, but there is multiplying. And now we know to undo multiplying by division. The reason why we're doing H is because we want B to stay put. We want B by itself. So then we have A in the numerator, H in the denominator, and we have B by itself, which is what we wanted. Now for the second problem, got to be careful because that's not a 21, that's a 2L. Because remember, perimeter has two lengths plus 2W, which is widths, and that makes up a perimeter. Now, once again, we're solving for W because it says 4W. And if you see a problem like this, that implies solve for W as well. Like, this is not part of the equation, it just means solve for. So we have to undo order of operations. So we have to undo adding and subtracting first. This 2L is connected, so it's grouped together. So we need to move that whole group by minusing because it's a positive 2L. So then we just write it because P and L are not the same letter. They stand for two different things. The P stands for perimeter, the L stands for length. So now we're almost there. We almost have W by itself. Now we have to undo multiplying by 2 by dividing by 2. So we have W equals the P minus 2L all over 2. Now technically you could simplify that a little bit more, but for this section, that is good. The reason why, we have W by itself, and that's what we wanted. For the third one, don't let the fraction scare you. Remember, fraction is just division. So we're solving for D. We want D by itself, but the D is kind of stuck in the numerator. So if it's stuck in the numerator, we have to undo dividing by 2, which we know is multiplying by 2. And now the whole reason why we multiply by 2 is to wipe it out, because 2 divided by 2 is 1, and that's actually what we want. So then this gets us 2Q. And now that the C and the D are no longer really grouped together in the numerator, you don't need to have parentheses. So let's go back to the problem. I'm looking for D. So I have to get rid of what's on that side. So in this case, I have to get rid of the C value. Now Q and C are two different letters, two different variables. So I'm just going to rewrite them. And now I have D isolated. And that's exactly what I was looking for. Now, the next two questions is, it's the last part of the I can statement. I can use literal equations to solve problems. So the formula to find speed is S equals D over T. So it says D is the distance and T is the time. Now it says make distance a subject. So that's a fancy way of saying solve for D. Get D by itself. So I'm going to highlight it. Now that D is being divided by T, so we have to undo dividing by multiplying. The T's become a 1 because T divided by T is 1. So then it's T times S equals D. Now you can write the T first or the S, or you could have S times T. And if you want to, you can put that little multiplication symbol, that's fine. Now this is where the application comes in. So we want to determine the distance that Frank drove. We know his speed. His speed in the problem says 43 miles per hour. And then the time, they said, was 2.5 hours. So now we just use the equation that we had, that we solved for D, and we just plug in. It's called plug and chug. So our speed is 43 and our time is 25. So I'm going to plug in, not 25, 2.5. So 2.5 and then 43. Now I use parentheses to mean multiplying. You could do this as well. It's just written in the same way or in different ways, but it means the same. So in your calculator, you can always use a calculator in my class. You want to multiply these together. 2.5 times 43 gets you 107.5. So the distance, because that's what D stands for. And notice that we were talking miles per hour, so the units is miles. And don't forget your punctuation at the end. Now the next one, force equals mass times acceleration. You guys will use this a lot in physics. So the equation is force equals m, and I'm going to put that dot for multiplying. So we're going to solve for m. So we need to undo what's with m. If you want to, you can still draw your line. That a is being multiplied, so we have to divide by a. So then mass equals force divided by a, which is acceleration. Now, some students were confused about this problem. You got to be very careful because it says force is 6,000 kilograms times meters over second squared. And if you don't know the units right now, that's okay. In physics, you will. Acceleration is 2 meters per second squared. So now we just have to plug in. We said mass was F over A. We have our force. So we're going to plug in our force. And we have our acceleration, which we're going to plug in. So then we are going to plug in 6,000 over 2. So then our mass is 3,000 kilograms. It's not 6,000, sorry guys. 6,000 divided by 2 is 3,000. That was my bad. I wrote it right here, and then I miswrote it. Now, the review question. Remember we're dealing with two numbers. Some of you guys on your homework are trying to do more than two. Just be careful. Your first number is always going to be x. Odd means you're going to skip a number, so then it's x plus 2. So this is our unknown. And then our given was that it's going to equal 52. We're adding, and then don't forget your answers need to be odd. So then our equation and solve. Put the pattern together to make an equation. So we have x plus 2 equals 52. Combine like terms, so we have 2x plus 2 equals 52. And now we just have a two-step. We minus 2 on both sides. Divide by 2. We're going to have x equals 25. Now that's our first number because that's our x. Our second number is x plus 2. So I'm going to plug in 25 plus 2, which gets me 27. So the two odd consecutive numbers are 25 and 27.